All right. All right. Jordan Chariton live with Steve Grumbine. Colin is on vacation, so expect some technical difficulties because it's me. It's me doing it myself. Colin on a much deserved vacation. Steve, thank you for joining me a little bit early. We have to address this breaking bowl of shit that the masses have gotten. I don't want to hear one person today in this chat tell me it's better than nothing. Steve, before we get to the news, I just want to take people down a trip memory lane. Obviously, student loans affect everybody, not just millennials. But just so we have a little history lesson on Joe Biden and what he thinks about the younger generation, much of whom are now saddled with debt slavery for the rest of their life. Let's take a look. Joe Biden, circa 2020.
We talked to one another over the war. And we were told, drop out, go out to Haight-Ashbury, get engaged. Shortly after I graduated in 68, Kent State, 17 kids shot dead. And so the younger generation now tells me how tough things are. Give me a break. No, I have no empathy for it. Give me a break. Because here's the deal, guys. We decided we were going to change the world, and we did.
So give me a break to the younger generation. And today he gave you, I don't know, what do you call that, Steve? Crumbs? I mean, by the numbers of this plan, it's $10,000 of loan cancellation, up to $20,000 for Pell Grant recipients, which are, Pell Grants go to theoretically those, neediest recipients. The system has been abused in the past, but it has helped a lot of people. Just look at these numbers, the percentage change over the last decade, 102% increase in the federal student loan balance, average college cost, 21%, median household income, 15%. I don't know, Steve, 15% increase in the median household income compared to 102% for student loan debt. Average student loan debt, $37,358. So I don't know if you just got $10,000 off the bill. That's still, that's still a lifetime of debt. I don't know many middle-aged people right now, young people who are looking at, all right, the balance went from, let's say the average, 40,000 down to 30,000. A huge monkey's off their back.
Yeah. I did send you, just so you know, I sent you a table. I created a table from my student debt to show you how this works. I sent it to you in email. If you feel like pulling it up, great. If you don't feel like pulling it up, that's fine too. But just to put it in perspective, okay? I had almost all of my student my college, if you will, paid for originally. The associate's degree was largely paid for by my mommy and daddy back in the day, which was nothing at the time. It was very, very inexpensive. But then to get my bachelor's degree, the phone company paid for, I think it was like $8,000 a year.
And was this in 1836? When was this?
Yeah, great. No, we're talking about probably between the years of 1996 and 2008 is when my stuff really took place.
There it is.
This right here is all the different loans that I took out from really what amounts to be 2006 when I got my graduate degree, started grad school, all the way through 3 semesters. The big ones are for 3 semesters of PhD program that unfortunately, really at the end of the day, it was one of these colleges that, is on one of the lists to be watched, Walden University. But that literally made up almost 40,000 in principal for three semesters. And if you look, because I was unable to pay my bills during the time when this came out because of the great financial crisis, losing my job, etc., the deferment is the middle, the accrued interest. And so this is all, like, if I just had 84,000, which is what I signed the line for, it's the 38,000 that is the accrued interest that has taken place on loans I took out in 2010, 11, 12, even when I was trying to go for the PhD program, for example. So this right here, and there's no jobs. I mean, they tell you that there is work available. They tell you there's a career waiting for you. They literally suck you up, but you have no idea what compounding interest looks like. You have no idea what any of this looks like. You have no idea what your payments are going to look like. You have no idea about any of it. And you've signed up for this stuff, and maybe you have a parent that helps you through it. Maybe you're by yourself trying to make your best decision possible. That school definitely wants you to sign up. That school wants you to sign up. So they're like, here, we can help you with financial aid. No problem at all, sir. No problem. Just sign right here. We got you covered. And then before long, you're stuck with this. And I see this Trailhead 464 person in the thing saying 20 million people may have their debt completely wiped. Maybe be grateful. Fuck you, Trailhead 464. Like, literally, like, fuck you in the eyeball hard. Fuck you. I sat there as a homeless person. I was homeless. I mean, I told this on my own channel, so please, I'm not going to retell the whole story here. If you want, check me out on the Rogue Scholar at Real Progress in Action to hear about my the whole story. It's there. But I'll tell you enough right now. The fact is, I was homeless. I was smart. I got sober. I didn't want to live, on the streets. My mother, my father, my brother came to Baltimore, did an intervention, a rescue for me, pulled me out of there, got me cleaned up, and I went back out and I got a job and I started trying to make things happen. And lo and behold, the cost to become part of society was incredibly high. Like, and you see people with even small degrees, you're not getting any jobs. You're not even able to find jobs. The jobs that their degree would be for aren't even there. They're busy, end up being baristas or doing something other than what they actually went to school for, because there's just not the kind of work out there that they promise you when you're signing those loans up. So I think this whole thing is a big pile of shit. And the most important part of this is that when you go to apply for a job, and the requirements, it says must have master's degree, must have project management professional certification, must have. And we're talking, a lot of these things are entry level. We're not even talking about high-end jobs. We're talking about a lot of these entry level are asking for master's degrees, for crying out loud. We're talking about for real. Like, you had to sign up for that, or you needed to be born with a silver spoon in your mouth and have mommy and daddy take care of it for you. Most of us didn't have that luxury. And so now here we are in our 50s, 60s, 70s, carrying these Golgothan loans on our backs as we tried to survive, to take care of our families. And the work wasn't there, but the payment is. And if you don't have the money to pay it, it accrues interest. And all of a sudden you have double what you signed up for because you didn't have the job that they promised you would have at the end of the rainbow. So I think this is a real big fuck you that Joe Biden did. It's a standard Democratic fuck you to the people. Okay. For those people out there that are doing well, that'll win for this, I'm always happy for people.
I don't want to interrupt you, but I feel I could get your measure. I could get your thermometer up a couple degrees after we play the Biden clip.
Play that son of a bitch.
I want to leave this. By the way, smash the like button. We got over 200 watching. We need every single person. Smash that like button. Colin's not here today, so I'm kind of trying to do the tech end. So there might be a few fuck ups, but that's okay. Colin's taking a much deserved vacay. But Biden just spoke. Of course, I'm not going to play the whole thing, but he started with some bullshit story about my daddy. My daddy told me a job gives you dignity. But let's play Biden literally saying people can start finally crawling out from that mountain of debt. It's going to be a slow crawl, folks. Here we take a look at President Biden announcing this.
My campaign for president, I made a commitment. That we provide student debt relief. And I'm honoring that commitment today. Using the authority Congress granted the Department of Education, we will forgive $10,000 in outstanding federal student loans. In addition, students who come from low-income families, which allowed them to qualify to receive a Pell Grant, will have their debt reduced to $20,000. Both of these targeted actions are for families who need it the most. Working and middle-class people hit especially hard during the pandemic, making under $125,000 a year. If you make more than that, you don't qualify. No high-income individual or high-income household on top of the 5%, in the top 5% of incomes, by the way, will benefit from this action, period. In fact, about 90% of the eligible beneficiaries make under $75,000 a family. Here's what that means. If you make under $125,000, you get $10,000 knocked off your student debt. If you make under $125,000 a year and you received a Pell Grant, you'll get an additional $10,000 knocked off that total, for a total of $20,000 relief. 95% of the borrowers can benefit from these actions. That's 43 million people. Of the 43 million, over 60% are Pell Grant recipients. That's 27 million people who will get $20,000 in debt relief. Nearly 45% can have their student debt fully canceled. That's 20 million people who can start getting on with their lives. All this means people can start, finally crawl out from under that mountain of debt to get on top of their rent.
So, his folks gave the percentages and all that to make it sound like this is historic and yada, yada. Hey, I don't want to take away from people that might have literally had 10,000 left or 20,000 left. But I will point out, and we're going to get to, the people ranting about inflation, which is a joke. Yeah, maybe people started out behind in the race and were on Pell Grants, right? But there's a whole lot of people that technically didn't meet the threshold to receive Pell Grants that haven't had their wages raised in 10 years, that their wages have been raised, but it basically is not even a real raise with inflation, that their rents have gone up 10, 15, 20%, that everything else has gone up before inflation. Right? So technically they don't meet the standard for I get the 20,000 because I wasn't on Pell Grants, but they're not in great shape. They should have gotten, I think all of it should be wiped out. But this arbitrary standard between people who are on Pell Grants and everybody else that are only getting 10,000, well, I would say the masses that are on got 10,000 wiped today are I don't want to say just as in need, but are needier than Biden is making it. So it just seems like essentially this was hatched out of some neoliberal laboratory. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Then we get to the point that the government owns these loans. So really what you're talking about is not anybody paying for this. It's just, all right, the money would not come to the government, just like, tax cuts for the wealthy. That money doesn't come to the government, just like subsidies to the fossil fuel industry. That money stops coming to the government. The government's not relying on this money to keep the lights on. Your thoughts? That was just some of what Biden said.
Well, first off, it's very important to understand that, number one, this is why MMT matters, right? When you understand the government as a currency creator, you stop all this hand-wringing about bullshit. Okay, Biden has had people that know this in his ear, and he's gone, yeah, no, I'm not listening to you. Because he's listening to the other people, the Neera Tandons and the other fools out there that literally want to keep us in. They all want to keep us in controllable positions where we are control. And they're looking at the people that they allowed to get off with these. So my brother, to be fair, my brother is one of the ones that got with the earlier relief that was given for the Corinthian institutions. My brother went to ITT Tech or whatever. and had like $18,000 of fraudulent, schooling that, he ended up getting written off. So for him, this worked out wonderful for him. Very happy for anybody that wins here. But the problem here is this. Number one, fundamentally, this is not ending for a lot of people. Number one. Number two, it's barely a scratch off the top for many people. And number three, it fundamentally still puts the training, education, and development budgets of major corporations on the backs of regular people. It fundamentally ignores what happened during the global financial crisis in 2008, 2009, when millions of us lost our jobs and still trying to rebuild our lives and everything else. And these debts that were taken out for stuff are taken out in an economy that doesn't produce the kinds of jobs that it would take to make them worth anything. And fuck the basket weaving or gender studies crap. Whoever says that, literally take yourself into another room. Take care of yourself. We don't want to see you again. Okay. I want to talk about the people that are literally going to end up hanging from a rope, because now all of a sudden we've done everything we're going to do for student debt. Just like the ACA, it got rid of any real talk of Medicare for all. This will get rid of any talk of actually meaningful structural adjustments to change the student debt thing. And remember, he didn't change the way that interest is accrued. So all that interest is piling up on people still. All of that crap is still building, doubling up your initial principal. I mean, you saw in mine, just the chart that I showed you, $38,000 of accrued interest, because I was unable to pay my debt. Forget, like, if the 80,000 were all I had to pay in my situation, it wouldn't be good. But it's what okay, if you want to be a douchebag conservative, it's what I signed up to. But the $40,000 of accrued interest because of the way they do this stuff, that is not okay. Not okay at all. And the more you think about this, I'm not alone. All of those people, all of us people, we got ignored. We got left behind. And that debt is just mounting and growing and piling up and piling up and piling up. And there's no relief in sight. There was no stopping that accrual of interest at all. And fundamentally, education should be free to begin with, because it's an investment in society. Number two, for businesses that hire us, it's their training, education, and development. If you want people, they should be on the hook for it if you're going to do that. I personally think, fuck them, put it on the government's back, because it's an investment in society. But instead, they're going to let some of us carry that debt, because this is what Democrats do. They like this means testing. They like this neoliberal balkanization where some get it, some don't. So you can pit everybody against each other, but it's just enough that win to keep everybody else suffering. Because those people that want are like, I love Joe Biden. He just got rid of all my debt. Fuck everybody else. And this is what happened when we elected Biden. 3/4 of the Democrats went to brunch. They stopped being an activist. They checked out. And all of us are left to hold the centrist bag that they left behind. It's a disgrace. And I'm so angry, because every day from here until election day, you're going to hear the drums beating. Look what Biden did. He's the man. He's the Miggity Mac. Look at what he did. Oh, isn't it great? Look at what we did. Aren't we great? And I'm telling you, sadly, there's just enough people that got over on this, that won, if you will, that the rest of us will be underwater screaming, somebody save us. And they're off to the party. They've already forgotten about us. We're done. We're fucked.
Or more simply said,
but I have to say, we're capitalist.
Not a joke. Not a joke. Not
It
a
is a
joke.
joke, Joe.
Not a joke. Not a
Do you remember the movie Caddyshack?
I do.
If you remember the movie Caddyshack? I'll be Judge Smales, you be Danny Noonan, right? We're sitting there at the table, and you've been a good caddy there, Jordan. Here, don't spend it all in one place. You look down, he threw you 50 cents. That the president of the country club gave you a 50-cent tip. That's what Joe Biden just did. Oh, I guess Mr. Scholarship winner, right? This is exactly what Joe Biden just did. He is Judge Smells all the way.
Come on, man.
Judge
Come
Smells
on, man.
all
Come
the
on,
way. I
man.
looked for that
Come
clip.
on,
I
man.
tried to get
Come
it.
on.
I couldn't find it.
Man,
Judge
come on,
Smells.
man.
From now on, he's President Smells. I mean, just a fucking asshole, man.
Enough is enough.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I'm going on this. I'm going on this rampage. I want to read. There's a lot more to get to. I want to read because the Debt Collective, which really was the leading activist group fighting to cancel all student loan debt, they issued a statement. I'm going to be interviewing somebody from the Debt Collective a little bit later.
Good for you. They've ignored me.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yep.
Hopefully they won't ignore me. Let's take a look at this. Long statement. Won't read the whole thing. It was a little more measured than I would have been, frankly. Organized student debtors and their allies have successfully pressured the White House into eliminating a significant chunk of federal student debt for tens of millions of people. But Biden's announced cancellation policy does not go far enough. This action proves that Biden has the authority to cancel all federal student debt, and he's choosing not to use it. Instead, he's opting to leave huge numbers of borrowers buried in unpayable debt. What we need is full cancellation and free public college for all, which is the only way to solve the student debt crisis. The more student debt President Biden cancels, the more we narrow the racial wealth gap, boost the economy, and put families on a path to financial freedom. That we force Biden, who has sided with banks over debtors his entire careers, to administer debt cancellation for working class communities is a testament to the power of a union of debtors banding together to exercise political and financial power. So that's just part of their statement. You know, what are they going to say, really? I think that, yes, it proves he can do it, but it also proves they could do a lot of things that they're just not going to do. And I'm not, trying to rain on their parade. I think they've done good work in activism, but really the only thing that I think would make a dent to force action here is a debt strike. You get thousands of people when payments resume, because this announcement today also delays repayment again till the new year. He says that's going to be the final extension. Don't pay it. What are they going to round you all up? Put you in prison? I mean, maybe. I don't know. But the problem with this, and again, I'm not trying to attack them because I think they do great work, is it's all this mentality that, just we got this, so let's fight for more. I mean, if you go into it like that, this fight for more thing, you're going to be fighting for more for the next 10, 3-4 decades. You're always going to be fighting for more if you don't use more guerrilla tactics now. Because, I mean, let's just look in the short term. It's looking better for Democrats, but Republicans probably going to take the House. You're not canceling any more debt in the Biden administration. Then, if you're lucky, I mean, if we're very unlucky, you get Trump again, DeSantis, or you get Biden again, or Kamala, or one of these other neoliberal people. You think this is going to be high on their priority list to listen to the Debt Collective after he's got reelected and there's no incentive to do anything for you? So, that's why having it as they did a protest in D.C. for one day, that's not enough. It's the same thing I said to those March for Our Lives kids. Great work. They got thousands of people out, but then everybody goes home. And you and I have talked about this over and over and over again.
Selfie. They got the T-shirt and they're home.
The need for, more economic boycotts. But I also want to show, because they mentioned the racial wealth gap, I'm not like the NAACP is fairly establishment. Their history is great. The origins of the NAACP was great. It tends to lean a little bit more establishment in terms of politics, but even they're not fucking around. NAACP president bashes Biden's reported plan on student debt relief. Derek Johnson, president of the NAACP, has bashed the Biden administration's reported plans on student debt relief. Quote, if the rumors are true, we've got a problem. And tragically, we've experienced this so many times before. The interstate highway system devastated Black communities, Johnson said in a statement yesterday. Welfare reform tossed poor people of color by the wayside. Johnson pointed out that the anticipated $10,000 on forgiveness for every borrower, in addition to payment pause, is not enough, especially for Black people. Quote, the Senate's failure to pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act failed to save Black lives. President Biden's decision on student debt cannot become the latest example of a policy that has left Black people, especially Black women, behind. Quote, this is not how you treat Black voters who turned out in record numbers and provided 90% of their vote once again to save democracy. Well, I got news for you, head of the NAACP. This is exactly how they're going to treat you. This is exactly how they're going to treat you, just like they punted qualified immunity out of the George Floyd Justice and Policing bill, which they haven't even passed, by the way. they are going to come to your churches about a year before the election day. How do I know? Because I've been to these churches in South Carolina where they, talk about, well, I've been on the rope lines with you, and I've been on the Selma Bridge with you, and I've done this and that. And they're insulting your intelligence. I'm not trying to white-splain to black people, trust me, but I've covered enough campaigns. They show up for you on election year calendar days, and then the rest of the time they're offering you crumbs.
Let me jump in. The late Glenn Ford.
One second. 300 people watching. I need every single person to smash that like button, share this live stream. Let's get it out to more people. And I need you to subscribe to Real Progressives. The description.
Real Progress in Action.
Real Progress in Action. The description and link in the description under this video. Go on, Steve.
So, ultimately, I kind of lost my place there when you stopped me.
I have that pattern.
Anyway, I think where I was going with this was that the late Glenn Ford of the Black Agenda Report and Alliance for Peace, I think Peace and Justice, I believe it is a Black Alliance for Peace. He was a phenomenal guy, and I wish he was around more. I got to interview him one time before he passed away, and he called these folks the misleadership class, and he explains in great detail, and we have a podcast for it out there on Macro and Cheese, check it out sometime, where he talked extensively about these Black people, these gatekeepers that serve as the misleadership class that kind of block progress, that stand in the way. These folks like Clyburn and others who do these kinds of gatekeeping activities that really, really destroy the Black community. He has profited off it. He's stayed in leadership role, but he has been Black misleadership from day one. Please check out Glenn Ford. You will not be, sad that you did. I wish that he was around right now. Now would be a great time for him to get up on that soapbox and deliver a haymaker. But Glenn Ford, man, check him out. He will flat out tell you, would have told you, and did tell us in the podcast we did with him about the absolute disgrace of the Black misleadership class that serves as gatekeepers to the establishment and blocks progress all the way. And Clyburn is one of the chief, purveyors of this evil, to be honest with you.
And by the way, I've recently learned that James Clyburn's daughter is somehow a judge in South Carolina without much experience in, law. That's a different story. I'll get to that in another time. I want to start playing the meltdowns so we can get into the total bullshit about this. So we've addressed Biden. Listen, at the end of the day, this isn't just about the dollar amount that they cancel, right? This is about the Pandora's box. To me, the real reason they only did 10,000 versus, let's say, cancel all of it is because we live in the United Corporations of America. So Joe Biden is just a vessel for the donors. Donald Trump, whatever you want to say, right-wing populist, give me a break. He's just is a vessel for the donors. The donors set the line of where politicians can and cannot go and how far they can or cannot go. So if they would have canceled all of it, then you have massive momentum for working people. And then they start asking, well, wait a minute, if we could pay for this, why can't we get paid sick leave? Why can't we get
medical debt?
Why can't we wipe out medical debt? Why can't we get rid of the private health insurance industry for the most part? Why can't we do Medicare for all, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? So it's not just about like on the micro, the macro picture is if they give you victories, the people are going to ask for more. The people will demand more. And they don't want that. Let me play. This is the Fox News meltdown about it. It'll go pretty much as, it's not going to surprise you, but I thought it was illuminating for sure.
And so the appropriate, I've struggled with this, Sandra. What's the metaphor for giving college debt? It would be like someone who is addicted to heroin, who's going through horrendous withdrawals. And there's a certain person in the room who says, well, only thing we can do to do away with these withdrawals is give them another bump of heroin. So this bill would only serve to hurt the long-term equation, which is it would rise the cost of college once again.
Then the forgiveness down the road will have to be
to
bigger
universities.
and bigger and bigger, to your point. And not only that, these far left Democrats, some of these progressives, this isn't even enough for them. Congresswoman Cori Bush tweeted out this: student debt is a nearly $2 trillion crisis. POTUS must cancel student debt, all of it. And Senator Bernie Sanders will. His staff tweeted this out: Republicans will attack for giving $10,000 in means-tested student debt as ferociously as if Biden canceled all student debt. Think big or go home, says his staff. Cancel all of it, Will. To your point, where does this end? Final thought.
Well, it never ends, because what do you do for the next generation, right? What about the next people that take on college debt? Do they get 10? It's a little bit like illegal immigration. You know, do you just continue to give out dreamer status and pathway to citizenship status to every wave of illegal immigrant? Do you give $10,000 in grants or for debt forgiveness to every generation of college student? You know, you can't, and it's just gonna. The point we're making.
Boy, was that a whipsaw? We go from heroin addicts to illegal immigrants, you know.
Conservatism is a mental illness, no question about it. I'd notice I didn't say Republican. I said conservative, because Democrats vote blue no matter who. The vote blue sycophant, the people that support the establishment, anyone that ever for 5 seconds makes an excuse for an establishment candidate, an establishment administration, you are just like that fuckhead on Fox. Just know that. Just know that's how I see you anyway. Just know I visualize you making an excuse for Biden exactly like that Fox host. Just laying it out there.
So that was the Fox meltdown, and keep those super chats coming. I am going to read them at the end. Now we'll just have a conventional Washington Post columnist who writes about the economy. Her, in my view, total ass, half-ass backwards take on this.
Is forgiveness or extension of a moratorium on loan payments, in the simplest terms, is a good economic policy?
I think from an equity and an inflationary standpoint, it's not the best use of taxpayer dollars here. There are a lot of people who will benefit who appear to have relatively low or moderate incomes today, but will have very high expected future earnings. I mean, going to college is generally considered an investment. If you are someone like a medical resident, for example, you will benefit from this because your income is moderate today, but your future earnings are very high. So I think there are better ways to target the people who are actually suffering from student loan burdens, who are less likely to ever be able to pay off their debts, maybe because they never actually achieved a degree, or they got a degree that was ultimately worthless. There are more targeted ways to do this that Biden has also pursued.
Okay, Steve, can I just fly off before you give us your MMT dissertation? So I don't know what fucking world these people live in. Honestly, we need term limits for politicians. We need to get money out of politics. Frankly, I think we need financial caps for people who are on television telling us the news, because these people are out of their fucking mind. They're so out of touch. Well, college is an investment in their potential earnings in the future. So let them just fucking eat ramen noodles now, because in the future they could eat cake. I would like her to come on the road with me, separate everything. Don't worry, it won't be weird. And just see what college graduates, 4-year degrees, or college graduates who then have a master's, or college graduates who have on top of that a certificate. Just see what that investment has done for them. Just see what their paycheck that they're taking home compared to their overhead for their family, their debt, not just for college, but medical and otherwise. They just, you basically have a cosmopolitan, elitist, and it's always been this way, even before corporations took over the media, but an out-of-touch, coastal, cosmopolitan, elitist class that feeds you the news. And these people have no idea that the majority of people with college degrees are barely making it. Let me repeat. The majority of people with college degrees are barely making it. Your thoughts? Oh, and by the way, when she said taxpayer money, I knew that was going to get you going.
Yeah, I mean, I ripped a long tirade about this earlier, and I'll just say it now. Folks, if you still think that federal taxes pay for the government, you're an idiot. There's no saving you at this point, because the fact is the government creates that money when it spends it into existence. That's it, period. They don't borrow it from some private bank somewhere. They don't do any of that crap. That's why the government is so powerful here. That's why it's so important to understand the federal government is the currency issuer. So when the federal government is backing your student loans, it's literally like there's no risk there, except for to you and me. When they put you in jail, if you don't pay your taxes, or you don't, you end up falling behind and they start accruing interest on this stuff, you get stuck with that because you are not monetarily sovereign. You are not able to create your own currency out of thin air like the federal government, which is a law called the US dollar that it alone holds the patent for, and it is farmed out its bank to the Federal Reserve. Get over it, Peter Pan, Count Chocula. Grow up. Okay. The fact is that's the way it works. And so when Congress writes a bill, it sends instructions to the Fed, who then keystrokes those into the Treasury's account, and then the Treasury spends it wherever it was supposed to spend to. If the government holds the debt, it just doesn't collect it. It's no big deal. The government doesn't need an income. The IRS is not collecting taxes so that you will be able to fund the government. The IRS agents and all these new ones are running around to make sure that you pay your tax, because it's that tax that keeps the currency holding its value, nothing else. And so by doing that, they're actually actively trying to maintain, so, whatever, okay, fine. But when it comes to student debt, though, don't act like this is coming out of some taxpayer's pocket. It's not. Pocket it's coming out of is the poor family that's trying to make ends meet, that took on these freaking loans just so that they could get a job to take care of the family. Nothing more. Literally nothing more than that. And to see people, regular people, like kind of excited and enthusiastic to punch down at people. You shouldn't have taken out that loan. You knew better. You should pay back your bills, all this stuff. That's regular people, folks. That's the warped-mindedness that comes from not understanding modern monetary theory. And because this affects Republicans and Democrats, think about it. Republicans, as dumb as they are, actually still go to college, okay? And so do centrist Democrats, as dumb as they are. They still go to college. And so all that bills that could have been wiped out would have affected Democrats and Republicans. It's not like it's only beneficial to communist lefties. By the way, the Democratic Party is not a left party. Sorry, hate to break it to you. Not an ounce of lefty in there. Okay. They are a capitalist party through and through, and don't ever forget that. All right. And so with this in mind, 1 second, Jordan, with this in mind, just remember that every single time they try to make this about somebody else getting over, they always try and associate it with a taxpayer dollar. Be better than that. Rise above. I've told you countless times on this program. If you follow my other work, I've told you it for fucking 15 years. 7 is real progressives. At this point in time, it's time to get with the program. Cut your Federal Reserve nonsense out. Recognize that that's right-wing talking points to starve us from spending, and start getting into this and remembering the battle is economic. For the Green New Deal, economic. Student debt elimination, economic. Medicare for all, economic. Every single thing you think you need and want and have to have is economic. Stop ignoring this subject. Stop getting caught up in which alt media group is fighting with which alt media group, and start focusing on core ground zero, money and power. All right, Jordan, I'm done. I'm off my rant.
I want to also I want to play a clip from someone who is not as artful as you, but basically makes this argument. I think you're going to like this, Steve.
Let's go.
Personal retirement accounts is another way of making a future retiree benefits more secure for their retirement. And also, do you believe that personal retirement accounts as a component to a system of solvency does help improve solvency? Because when you have a personal retirement account policy, it's accompanied with a benefit offset. With that feature in place, do you believe that personal retirement accounts can help us achieve solvency for the system and make those future retiree benefits more secure?
Well, I wouldn't say that the pay-as-you-go benefits are insecure in the sense that there's nothing to prevent the federal government from creating as much money as it wants and paying it to somebody. The question is, how do you set up a system which assures that the real assets are created which those benefits are employed to purchase. So it's not a question of security. It's a question of the structure of a financial system which assures that the real resources are created for retirement as distinct from the cash. The cash itself is nice to have, but it's got to be in the context of the real resources being created at the time those benefits are paid so that you can purchase.
Is that not modern monetary theory? Am I missing something?
No, this is the point. This is super important. So MMT is neither Republican nor Democrat. It's neither socialist nor Nazi or fascist or any other system. It's simply a description of the way currency works. Alan Greenspan, even the king neoliberal of all time, sat there and schooled freaking Chucky over there, Mr. freaking Dumbo, Paul Ryan. Okay, he schooled him right there. And most people didn't even hear what he was saying because they're so busy focused on Paul Ryan and Alan Greenspan. They didn't even listen to that. But that was the most important accidental bit of truth a Federal Reserve chairman's ever made. Now, mind you, Ben Bernanke said it once too, accidentally as well. There's been several times Federal Reserve chairmen have spoken up because every single bit of profit that comes through the Federal Reserve is returned to the Treasury minus operating expenses. And it's a very small amount. Billions upon billions upon billions of dollars are sent to the Treasury. And people ignore this. Why? I don't know. Maybe they like Jesse Ventura. They want to listen to some other crazy, I don't understand economics podcast or whatever. But what Alan Greenspan said right there is proof positive. There's nothing preventing the federal government from spending whatever it needs to spend to create as much money as it needs to spend, to create it and spend it into existence. There's nothing other than ignorance and political will. So we may not get what we want electorally, but if we take to the streets and force them and say, dudes, we already know we can have everything and you have screwed us. Why are you screwing us? If we can put that out there and get people to unite around that, oh my God, that's the tip of the spear to get a Green New Deal, Medicare for all, student debt really for real, all these things. But instead we go fighting orphan politics, chasing this headline there, chasing that one there, instead of going right there at the point of attack. And this is what I've been fighting for 15 years, Jordan. By the way, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to say it for your larger audience, because this needs to be heard. This isn't something special for Steve Grumbine. I didn't create this. This is chartalism at its finest. This right here is modern monetary theory told by Warren Mosler, Stephanie Kelton, Bill Mitchell, L. Randall Wray, Fadl Kaboub, and many, many others. I'm begging you, beseeching you, pleading with you to get with the program, because this is the cornerstone to solve everything, to bring the goddamn system down. Okay? If you want to blame capitalism, because I know I saw somebody in the chat saying you blaming alt media instead of capitalism. Capitalism is to blame. Alt media is out there chasing likes and clicks, ignoring this. They are abdicating their responsibility as a warrior in this fight. I'm looking, if I'm a football coach, I don't sit there and yell and scream at the other football team for practicing a play that beat me. I focus on my team that is not doing what they're supposed to do. That's who I focus on, because I expect the enemy to do enemy things. I expect my team to be on point, to be fucking showing up, ready to work, ready to do their job, and be there, ready to fucking kick some ass. Okay? Because what ends up happening? Exactly what happened today. Joe Biden goes up there and the narrative is, hey, we did such a great thing, but they didn't. It's time to make our warriors trained up, ready to fight capitalism, this big, gigantic capitalism, fight this nebulous thing, fight it. Show me how you're fighting it. You're fighting it with education. That's all you got. So if you're going to fight capitalism, you need to train people how the fucking system works instead of just waving your hand around about the system, the capitalism. You got to know the thing so you can fight the thing. If you don't know the thing, you're just going to be always wondering, well, I don't know what happened. Oh, you mean it? Oh. Yes, That's how important this is. Without understanding the rules and the weapons of their fight against us as people, you can't fight them back. You can't beat them without knowing the game they're playing. You must learn the game so you can fight them and win. If you continue to say, oh, capitalism, great, you're a victim, go whine somewhere else. I get it. I get it. You've given up. You've already done the progressive give up strategy. Go. It's over. I get it. It's over. There's capitalism won, right? No, you've got to train people how to fight. It's like, imagine coming back, jumping back into a time machine with tanks and guns and stuff and going back in time and spoiling their innocence and saying, listen, you're about to have a fight. You're about to fight the Terminator. You got to learn how to fight the weapons of the Terminator. You got to learn how to beat him, John Connor. Well, that's what we need to do to beat capitalism. We can't keep waving our hand and say, oh, it's just capitalism, because people have been saying that forever and nothing has changed. Nothing. Capitalism is absolutely the enemy. But the problem is the tools that they're doing are very deceptive and slick. And just saying capitalism, it's like trying to shoot into the sky and saying, hey, I hit my target. Where? Which cloud did you hit? You just shot it up in the, oh, but I hit capitalism. Right. Capitalism is bad, but the tools, the fight is individual. There's skirmishes along the way. You can't bring down capitalism if you don't understand how they're beating you. You must be smarter. And I'm here to educate, not to sit there and wave my hand and give up and throw the white flag. It's capitalism. Shoot the shot in the clouds. See if I hit something. No, it's specific. It's very specific, the systems that they use and how they use them. Because, folks, even in a socialist society, you will still have money. You will still have a form of money to use. You will still have to buy things from different co-ops or whatever, but you will not just get free stuff. You will still have to do some form of exchange, period, whether it be mutual credit or something. So understand the systems, understand how they work, and be able to fight them and beat them and say, I know you're lying. I know you're lying. You're not questioning and wondering if they're lying. You know they're lying. And now you can bring others into the fold, because it takes more than 1% of people. We need to have an army ready to fight back at this, to take to the streets, to literally say no more and bring it to its knees. But you can't do that if all you're doing is shooting blanks at capitalism. You've got to know the deal and fight back. And that's what I'm saying here. I'm saying no, be smart, be intelligent, know what the fuck you're fighting, and know the war and know the weapons and understand the conditions that you're battling in, the material conditions. Know them, because that's what you're up against. The word capitalism is just like ephemeral. It's just this big, ginormous thing. It's like, yeah, okay. Yeah, capitalism ate my homework. You know, I get it. But I'm telling you, it's ineffective. You're not fighting anything. You're fighting random ghosts. You need to fight specific things, because there's specific people and specific instances that are harming you and hurting you and preventing you from overcoming. And that is why this is so goddamn important. So important. Learn modern monetary theory, understand the way federal finance works, and stop the nonsense. Learn it so that you can win the war, so we can win the war and be rid of this freaking abusive relationship where they take advantage of us and they own the means of everything. Let us share in that. Let's own the means of production. But we can't do that if we don't understand how to fight them. And I'm trying to give you the playbook. If you ignore that and you just wave your hands, capitalism, then you've done their bidding. You've literally taken away any specific action and made it capitalism.
You've given me so many fucking memes in that 10-minute monologue. And waving and all.
Wait, I haven't heard nothing yet.
Let's get after them, damn it. I know you got to go soon, so I want to get through a few. I want to get through a few things.
Come on back on the screen with me, brother.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think. And by the way, just one small thing. There are a lot of people, because you said if you don't understand MMT by now, you know, you're whatever you said, derogatory.
You're lost.
But don't. They're not lost. A lot of people have been lied to. A lot of people, new people that might be watching today, have probably never even heard the term.
Yes, you're right. Learn. There's a lot of people that have heard it.
We want to encourage people. You're not bad, but modern monetary theory means when they're saying, well, how are we going to pay for Medicare for all? Why don't they ask that about Iraq and Afghanistan and Vietnam and Somalia and Pakistan? Because taxpayer money doesn't cover those costs. You think your taxpayer dollars cover the fucking 800 bases we have all over the world and the bases we have in space probably?
Oh.
You think your taxpayer money covers that? And I found this clip. I think this is what you were referring to. You could correct me if I'm wrong. But this is former Federal Reserve Chair Ben Bernanke,
Yes,
who helped bail out all the banks
Yep.
In 2008 and 9. This is him basically saying, yeah, we just kind of create money with computers. Here, let's take a look at this.
yes.
Is that tax money that the Fed is spending?
It's not tax money. The banks have accounts with the Fed, much the same way that you have an account in a commercial bank. So to lend to a bank, we simply use the computer to mark up the size of the account that they have with the Fed. So it's much more akin, although not exactly the same, but it's much more akin to printing money than it is to borrowing.
You've been printing money.
Well, effectively, and we need to do that because our economy is very weak and inflation is very low. When the economy begins to recover, that'll be the time that we need to unwind those programs, raise interest rates, reduce the money supply, and make sure that we have a recovery that does not involve inflation.
He's wrong there.
He's not kidding about printing money.
So can I make the point, Steve? Because all these people having a meltdown, and by the way, President Biden's former chief economist is, going off about this.
I hate that, man.
Jason Furman pouring roughly $500 billion of gasoline on the inflationary fire that is already burning is reckless. Doing it while going well beyond one campaign promise, $10,000 of student loan relief, and breaking another, all proposals paid for, is even worse. Can I just make the point? There's been a pause on student loan debt for, I think, 2.5 years now? Let me repeat. Nobody with government subsidized loans has been paying those loans for over 2.5 years. Has the sky fallen? Has America, had to go out of business? Are we all just on the side of the street doing lemonade stands? No. And by the way, that pause has nothing to do with the current inflation. That pause has nothing to do with our inflationary situation. So if we could just basically cancel it for 2.5 years and it has no effect, why can't you cancel it now? It's absurd.
Can I give an inflation primer real quick? A quick inflation primer for everybody.
Do it for dummies. Go ahead.
Just real simple, right? When the government increases interest rates, which jackass Furman said, okay, when Bernanke said it too, when the government increases interest rates, that is a transfer of real wealth to the wealthy. It's a transfer to people who already have money, because where do interest rates go? They go to people that already have money. Okay. So raising interest rates on its own merit is once again inflationary. Now, the other thing is, if you raise taxes on businesses, right? Businesses pass on all cost increases. This is 101. Go take a basic business class at your community college, and they're going to show you that businesses pass on all cost increases. That is not going to be paid for by the business. That's going to be paid for by you and I, because, after all, we're so into getting after the business that we forget that, by the way, that new increase in cost, it's going to us. Okay. The other thing that's important to remember is the money supply is irrelevant. Remember, inflation always comes from somebody's pencil. It doesn't come from God. It's not some natural creation. They pass those costs on. So in other words, when they know that you're making a little bit more money, somebody in the 4 Ps of marketing looking at pricing is going to say, hey, maybe they've got a little bit more disposable income at their disposal. So they'll go ahead and jack the prices up. Okay. This is the same thing that happened with fuel. If they realize that they can go ahead and raise prices on fuel because you got a couple pennies extra, they're going to do that until the economy bottoms out. Why? Because that's what business does unregulated without a government intervention. But the only time you have a real, honest to God inflation, not what they call a relative value story, which is when businesses raise prices for their own reasons. The only time you have actual real inflation is when the federal government chooses to pay more for a service than it previously did. So, for example, if I pay a project manager at the government level $50 an hour to do that job, and suddenly I come back and I say, I'm going to pay it at $55 an hour. That's a $5 increase. That will create inflation in that space. If we say we're going to pay $1 a gallon for gas, but then all of a sudden the government raises it up and says, no, we'll pay $2 a gallon now. That is going to create inflation because the government is the money monopolist, and therefore it is also the price setter. So the government will create inflation. If the government refuses to pay the higher cost, there will be no inflation. The government has complete control at the first dollar spent. Where they spend that money and where they spend it at is what sets inflation. Do not allow them to tell you that because you're making more money that suddenly you're creating inflation. It's the government's choice as to whether or not there's inflation, as to how they spend that money into existence. Remember that. It is not about how much money's the number of dollars in the economy has absolutely no bearing on inflation. The government spending, what it pays does. Okay. So just remember that. Please hold on to that for dear life. Remember what I just said. I promise you. You won't go wrong. You'll be able to understand so much of the news every time you read it. You'll know that they're lying when they said they printed money and made inflation. Now, Jordan made a great point. We haven't paid these student debts in 2.5 years. Now, if we start paying them, that is like a tax in the economy because suddenly that payment is now gone. That money is deleted because the government is taking it in. It serves as basically a tax. Okay. So in that sense, it literally is going to hurt us by taking more money out of our pockets. Okay. This is not going to help. And now all of a sudden, without more government spending to backfill the money that was taken out, you're going to have recessions. Okay. So I just want you to be clear. When government reduces spending, when government pays more, you got high inflation and you've got recessionary powers going on when they stop spending. So anyway, that's it in a nutshell.
And you know what, Steve? What's amazing about this? Where is that? Oh, I can't. Who just said this? Ian 392. Hey man, you just taught me something new. Thank you. Isn't that the goal here? To educate the masses?
Absolutely.
The masses? So we want you to understand, because also for me, I mean, this has real life consequences. Not to diminish the debt part of it. I mean, I've been covering Flint for going on 7 years now. They have not replaced all of the fucking pipes in Flint, Michigan after 8 years. The water is still toxic in Flint, Michigan after 8 years. We don't have enough money for that?
So let me answer that.
We need Congress to give the money for that?
The states can't produce currency. Article 1, Section 10 clearly prohibits states from doing this. Article 1, Section 8 gives that power to Congress. Congress, the president even, could declare an emergency there and could make those payments and fix it immediately. Same thing when Puerto Rico got slammed with hurricanes, could have immediately rebuilt it instead of sending it off to the Bane capitals of the world to vulture in and destroy and steal from Puerto Rico, the same as they did to Detroit. Jordan, this is the most important thing. MMT shows us that the federal government, being the currency issuer, has extraordinary powers to make all of our lives right, yet we choose to allow us to struggle. That right there should tell you something. I hope it's waking you up, because it is what turned me onto this MMT thing to begin with, and I've been on it, and I haven't been able to go a day without thinking about it from the minute I woke up to the minute I went to bed. I have literally never not thought about this for damn near 15 years, Jordan. It's been 15 years of every single day, because I realized how shitty my life was and how I finally understood the way capital worked, and I understood the way the money game worked. And that illumination is freedom in a way. And it's also a prison, because now that you know, and you see people saying ridiculous stuff about taxpayer money, this and print money, that, and all the other things that they say, all of a sudden you start going, oh my God, we're up against impossible odds. How do we do this without getting more people to wake up and understand? And after 15 years, man, I'm exhausted. I'm begging people, begging people to pick up on this. So anyway.
Absolutely. Tell me when you got to go, because I know it's your kid's first day. So the main thing to me about this is there's so many angles, inflation, what causes inflation, this and that. But you're already seeing the Democrats are basically going to run a marketing campaign for the next 3 months. And then if they're successful with that marketing campaign, that on steroids heading into 2024, they're going to run a marketing campaign, a historic infrastructure deal. Yeah. Is that infrastructure deal really like helping you right now? Seriously. Is that infrastructure deal, that bipartisan infrastructure deal, like making the difference for you if you're watching? They're going to run on this. We canceled, check the box. They're going to run on, we put shots in your arms and money in your pockets, a $1,400 check.
Good marketing there, Jordan.
Right. They're going to run on, some smaller things, the Inflation Reduction Act and the tax credits they've given you, which, by the way, I just looked because I wanted to buy like a plug-in car. So, half electric, whatever, not even eligible. Not eligible. So they're going to run on these things that structurally have not changed anything. So this is my point when I wave the flag behind me, because we live in the United Corporations of America. They're only providing what they're allowed to provide by the donors. They don't go past the line that the donors won't allow them to go past. So they're going to be running a marketing campaign trying to sell you crumbs as wonderful red velvet cake. And you want to know something? Sure, the devil's advocate could say, well, Jordan, do you think Republicans would have given you $10 of student loan debt versus $10,000? You got to get out of that way of thinking. You have to get out of that way of thinking that it's better than nothing, because that better than nothing is why they pretty much give you a little bit better than nothing. If you actually start demanding more and organizing, and Steve and I have been talking about this since we've known each other, organizing, I don't think we could have a general strike tomorrow. I don't want to lie to you. But start organizing, short term. I just interviewed the head of the railroad workers. We might have a railroad strike that we haven't seen in a century. We might have over 100,000 railroad workers go on strike, possibly in a month. We see what's going on with Starbucks, Amazon, now Trader Joe's. The Alabama coal miners have been on strike for over a year down in Alabama and be getting attacked by this coal company. And the cops have been helping. We see the Kansas City tenants unions doing great work. I just interviewed them on your channel. You've been focused on activism and, organizing. We need to start organizing economically, because God bless you to the debt collective. God bless you to, the Sunrise Climate people. But if you're not joining with your boots on the ground for protests, boycotting economically, then you're not threatening the donors. I'm not talking about being violent. I'm talking about you have to threaten their profits. You have to threaten their ability to do stock buybacks. That's what we need to do. And that goes for all of it, including this. I wish, AOC, God bless you. You went out and got arrested for Roe v. Wade. That was the easy part. You could have organized protests outside the White House, Occupy Wall Street style, with your massive, massive army, not just her, the entire squad, Bernie too, to demand that Biden cancel all of it. Could you imagine if there was an extended pressure campaign on him? The media would have to cover it if you have mass protest in front of the White House, in front of the Capitol. And that goes for all of it, not just student loans. But we're not seeing that because they're getting sucked into, and the elected progressives are getting sucked into, well, we got to take on the Republicans and the fascists. Well, offering crumbs to the masses is what enables and emboldens the fascists. Because if people have a choice, if people are in economic dire straits, what are they going to do? If you're only offering them little neoliberal crumbs, they're going to get sucked in by the strong man or woman. Your final thoughts, Steve?
No, you're exactly right. And folks, just let me say this for the record. I literally go live Monday, Wednesday, Friday, do a podcast every Saturday, come here on Tuesdays and do the Ready to Grumble show on here as well. I'm not trying to push anybody away. I'm just frustrated by a group of people that should be our allies on our side, that have not embraced understanding economics. They skip the post, they don't share, they don't retweet, they don't do anything. And so when you have a situation like this, the only narrative is the silly neoliberal narrative, or just this hand waving capital, this and that and the other, instead of a direct actionable focus. So I am sorry if anybody got the impression that I was trying to push people away or not teach people. I wake up every day trying to teach people. I wake up every day trying to activate people. So I hopefully, you got something from my words. Hopefully my story resonates with you. Hopefully there's some value coming from the time you listen to me. I hope you get something out of it because I mean for you to get something out of it. So Jordan, thank you again for having me on. I am going to go get my kids off the bus. And for those of you out there who are still suffering, stay strong. So let's keep fighting. And for those of you who won, I'm happy for you. I really am. For those people that were able to get something, I am happy for you. The fight isn't over though. So with that,
I really think we need to make a commercial with you reading your kids bedtime stories about modern monetary theory.
I would love. That would be great.
That would be good.
Think about that.
Everybody, go subscribe. Real Progress in Action. It's in the description right under here. Appreciate it, Steve.
Thank you, sir.
We're not going anywhere. So smash that like button, share this live stream. I am going to read super chats in a little bit. I wanted to show you one more story because it's just vile. And it kind of it just completely shows you we live in the United Corporations of America. This is good stuff from The Intercept, actually. Real estate CEO. Recession could be good if unemployment puts employers back in the driver's seat. The executive told Wall Street analysts that joblessness could help companies, quote, bring people back in the office where they want them. So start firing people. It'll give us corporate Neanderthals more leverage. The CEO and president of Douglas Emmett Inc., a real estate corporation worth over $3 billion and based in Santa Monica, California, said on an August 2nd corporate earnings call that a recession could be, quote, good for the commercial real estate business, quote, if it comes with a level of unemployment that puts employers back in the driver's seat and allows them to get all their employees back in the office. The executive, Jordan Kaplan, then repeated that, quote, the thought would be that unemployment would be up and therefore employers would be in the driver's seat to bring people back in the office, where they want them. Yeah, because, we can't have a society where people are chained to a desk for 8, 9, 10 hours a day. Quote, rather than, Kaplan added, I would not be pleased to have us going into a recession. He noted that recessions are revenue-hitting activity. So he's not upset that recessions, hurt people, that they kill people, that they destroy families. They're just recessions are revenue-hitting activity. And if my tenants are feeling the impact of recession, then I can't imagine how I think that's good. There's zero concern here about how laying off millions of people, firing millions of people would actually, affect human beings. It's about financial activity. Kaplan made the remarks in response to a question from Citigroup analyst Michael Griffin, who said that, quote, we've seen some of your office peers come out and say potentially that a recession could be good for the office space. Curious to get your thoughts of what we could expect from an impact on the portfolio, just given the central recessionary environment on the horizon. Stuart McElhenney, Vice President of Investor Relations for Douglas Emmett, told The Intercept Kaplan was merely entertaining Griffin's argument, of course, which he said was a common one on Wall Street, and that Kaplan was actually skeptical of it. Quote, I think overwhelmingly the feeling is that a recession would not be good for our business or for any of our customers. McElhenney explained that the phrase, quote, puts employers back in the driver's seat referred to the tight labor market. All right, I don't need to give their spin, but that's the country we live in. These corporate Neanderthals run our government. How do they run our government? Because they pay off the politicians. And they pay off the politicians so that the politicians will only offer crumbs. And I know that the boo birds are out there. I know that they're going to say, well, Jordan, don't minimize it. This has whatever number Biden gave. This is going to wipe out debt for 20 million people. That's great. But why live in a country where you're satisfied that 20 million people have their debt wiped out when it could be whatever the total number is, which is a lot more than 20 million people? Why live in a country where we just showed you between Alan Greenspan, between Ben Bernanke, they said it's not taxpayer money. The government prints money. So when you hear, the Fox News ridiculous clip we played that, comparing these to heroin users, these debtors, they just want another smack. or they compared it to, undocumented people. When you hear them talk about this isn't the best use of taxpayer money, they're lying to you. They are lying to you and gaslighting you. This is not taxpayer money we're talking about. The government has the money to pay for all of this, but the government doesn't do it because the government is run by corporate criminals. The government is run by puppets who work for the corporate criminals who don't want to open up that Pandora's box, who don't want to get people out of that way of thinking that goes beyond, oh, wow, at least we got something. They don't want to give people hope that you could start thinking differently and we could have more than, better than nothing. They don't want that. They don't want that. Let me read some super chats. Z Corp Alpha 999. January 2023 Supreme Court can put down the Biden proposal. This is a campaign to get votes for November, nothing more. That is a good point. We didn't talk about that, but there is a chance that this could be struck down in the courts. So even this crumb cake might be taken away by a corporate Supreme Court. Self-taught artist, $9.99. Thank you very much. Double K, $19.99. Thank you, Double K. Double K, another $19.99. Love Colin. Yes, we all do. Colin's taking a much-deserved vacation for a week. Troy Z and KZ just joined as a Status Coup YouTube member. Welcome, Troy. I also want to give a shout-out because we got a new member through our website. Remember, membership is how we grow, so please consider signing up as a Status Coup member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Welcome, Paul signed up, and Jay just signed up. So welcome to Paul and Jay, just signed up as Status Coup members. You can become a Status Coup member for as low as a cup of burnt Starbucks coffee a day, $5 to $10 a month. You can become a Status Coup member, so consider signing up. For as low as $5 to $10 a month. We are going to do our monthly members call when Colin gets back next week, probably. So statuscoup.com/join. Join us so you could join our members call. Always a great time with our members. Hold on. I'm trying to copy and paste these super chats as they come in. Colin usually does it for me, but he's not here. So I'm trying to do a mix of a lot of things. All right. Double K, $19.99. Love Colin. Troy, welcome as a YouTube member. John Ramsey, $10. Thank you, John. Enco Pop, $5. With this 10-cent reduction in my student loan debt, I will not be voting in the midterms. I honestly think that's how a lot of people are going to feel. I think if they think this is going to get young people out for the Democratic Party, maybe some, but I don't think a ton. I don't think young people who, held their nose, maybe drank a little bit and went to vote for Biden, even though they didn't want to vote for Biden, but they wanted to get rid of Trump. I don't think they feel like they've gotten a return on their investment from Joe Biden. So I don't think this is going to help as much as Biden might delusionally think. Double K, $19.99. Thank you very much. Humorous, $19.99. Double K is the bomb. Status Coup is the bomb. All who have come to visit this channel are just simply awesome people. Thank you, Humorous. Appreciate your support as always. Humorous, another $19.99. I find it amusing, interactive, and so informative when Steve Grumbine goes off. You gotta love it. The man ain't lying. Yes, I do worry about his health a little bit. I don't want him to have a heart attack, but we do love when he goes off. Double K, another $19.99. Thank you. Double K, another $19.99. Says, go Steve. Thank you. Humorous, $20.99. I think Steve and Jordan need to meet Robert Reich. Steve is correct about 99% of what he says. In this country, money does not exist until the government prints it into existence. They do it every year. There is no deficit. Very true. I've reached out to Robert Reich before for an interview. Hasn't responded. Robert Reich, I will give him, since he left Bill Clinton's administration, because he was Bill Clinton's labor secretary, he has criticized the right-wing Republican shit that Bill Clinton did. But he's still a little more establishment than for my taste. But I would love to interview him for sure. So I will reach out to him again it's up to him to respond. Fly Chomper Fly, $5. Finally, someone who admits that socialism would still involve commerce and so can be abused also. Spent years trying to tell people. Thanks, Steve. Thank you for the $5. Steven, $10. Great show today, guys. Thank you, Steven. Humorous, another $10. I agree. We need 1 million people to go and camp out in Washington to get things done. We can't be afraid of starving or freezing to death because when the people are united, those things don't happen. I completely agree. And by the way, just to be clear, the things that we're calling for, they're not easy. These are not things that could just happen overnight. A lot of people are working, 2 jobs, 3 jobs, and can't protest. A lot of people can't get out there and, have too much fear to not pay their rent and join something like a rent strike because, they're barely hanging on as it is. That's why people need to come together, because if you come together, you get out of that fear. There's strength in numbers. This is why, since the dawn of time, the corporate establishment, their puppet politicians, they have worked to divide people on class levels and on race, because they know we actually have more in common than we have that divides us. And they don't want, poor whites. They don't want poor white people and poor black people to be united. They don't want poor people on the left and poor people on the right to be divided. I'm not saying go, sing Kumbaya with a loony fascist right winger if they're a loony fascist right winger. But there's a lot of right wingers struggling just as much as you, some of whom are, believe in unions and things like that. So, I think we need a lot more economic organizing, because that's the only way that you're going to threaten power. And when I mean power, I'm talking about the donors. If you economically boycott Amazon, if you economically boycott Walmart, if you economically boycott, name your fast food, if you start doing economic boycotts where people are pulling their money from corporate banking, if those corporate titans, if their quarterly profits, meaning 3 months, go down 2%, oh, they're going to have a meltdown. And they're going to then go to their employees, i.e. Joe Biden and the Republicans, and say, you got to give the people something. They're getting hysterical and they're hurting our profits. You got to give them something. Give them more. Do this, do that. That's how real change happens. Remember, Martin Luther King was killed, not when he was calling for civil rights. It's when he started talking about jobs and socialism. That's when he was assassinated. Robert Kennedy, RFK, he ran on poverty. Remember, he went to Mississippi and a bunch of other places and focused on the growing poverty in America. One of the last politicians, other than Bernie, to do that. So we're going to keep seeing crumbs until people start demanding more. When I say demand, I mean leveraging their power. And let's not forget the elected progressives in Congress that are not doing what they ran on doing. There was nothing stopping Bernie, the squad, all of them from organizing the grassroots, getting them to the White House, and holding indefinite protests demanding for Biden to cancel all the debt. Cancel all the debt. There was nothing stopping them. The media would have covered it. Sure, they would have, went after the progressives. They would have attacked them as dividers and, lunatics, and you're hurting Democrats in November. Guess what? Who cares? Who cares? If the media and the pundits and Biden and his ilk are going to go after you. When you put pressure on politicians, when you make them uncomfortable, when you shame them, when you get the grassroots out, then the media is forced to cover it. The media can't ignore if you have hundreds of or thousands of people protesting outside the White House. Can't ignore it. But we're not seeing that. We were told, let's elect us and let's bring the ruckus to the Democratic Party. I'm still waiting for that ruckus. And sure, AOC and the rest of them will say, well, it's easier said than done, Jordan. The pressure inside the halls of Congress, you have no idea. Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure it's much worse than even I know. But you know what? That's what you signed up for. Going along to get along and playing inside baseball diplomacy with Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and Joe Biden. What's that getting you? $10,000 of student loan cancellation when there's nothing stopping him from giving more? And this is not just about the student loan cancellation. This is about all of it. Biden ran on a public option. Remember that? I mean, I'm not, that's not my preferred policy. I believe in universal health care. But he ran on a public option. There's been no pressure on Biden. It's not even mentioned anymore by elected progressives. Biden ran on raising the minimum wage to $15. He immediately backtracked from that. Progressives just sucked it up. And by the way, $15 an hour now is the conservative position. With inflation, $15 an hour, it might as well be $13 an hour. When you look at inflation, it's not $15 an hour. And if we got $15 an hour now, guess what? It doesn't go into effect for several years. It would be staggered over years. At this point, you can't seriously talk about raising the minimum wage for anything less than $25 an hour when you're looking at inflation since the 1970s. There are good things going on. There's a lot of people on YouTube and elsewhere that the way they make money is to make you think it's all hopeless, it's all too corrupt, and they don't cover what's actually going on. They don't cover the good things that are going on. Like I said, we might have an historic railroad strike coming up. If it happens, it's probably going to happen in late September. We do have mass unionization going on with Starbucks, Amazon in Staten Island. Amazon is now workers are trying to organize now in Kentucky, in Albany, New York. You have the Trader Joe's union movement, already have unionized some stores. Verizon workers are organizing. Apple workers are organizing. You have tenants unions all over the country popping up. I just interviewed folks from the Kansas City Tenants Union that disrupted a theater play in Kansas City and then went to City Hall and raised hell. Brick by brick by brick. People are realizing Paul Revere's not coming. The government's not coming to save you. You need to take it into your own hands. And another great thing you could do is join Status Coup as a member. StatusCoup.com/join. Why is it so important to join us? It's not to feed me. I'm making $50,000 less than I made 5 years ago at the Young Turks. I'm never going to be, making bank from Status Coup. It is important to support Status Coup because, as far as I know, we're still the only ones leaving the studio and covering things on the ground. Let me repeat. We are still, as far as I know, the only independent outlet that's leaving the studio to cover important news on the ground. I want to cover a railroad strike for as long as it takes, if it happens. I want to continue covering the union movement in America. I want to continue covering worker strikes. We went to Iowa last year and covered the John Deere strikes. We freezed our ass off. But you need money to do it. And we need financial resources to do these things. Also, by the way, if you haven't noticed, we're expanding. We have Tina now doing a weekly show. That's going to air tomorrow. This week, the Right Wing Insanity Report. That'll air tomorrow at 6 o'clock Eastern. We have Kim Brown, who's doing a weekly show. She's the host of Burn It Down with Kim Brown on YouTube. She's doing a weekly show. Normally, she'd be on Wednesdays, but Colin is on vacation. And, it's not easy to figure out StreamYard. So she'll be back when Colin's back. I'm also talking potentially to someone about being an on-the-ground reporter for us. I can't hire anyone full-time, but at least freelance. I don't have the money to hire people full-time, unfortunately. But we're trying to expand. Obviously, we pay people, and we try to pay them well. So we need your help. If it's within your means, StatusCoup.com/join. I'm only asking for $5 to $10 a month. Obviously, if it's not within your means, that's cool too. If it's not within your means, totally understand. Henry, I do my show at 5 p.m. We did it earlier today because of the student loan debt cancellation of $10,000. Normally, I'm live 5 o'clock Eastern time. That's 2 Pacific. A little late for me to do it at 8 o'clock at night. I'm an old man at this point. So I'm not going to do it at 8 o'clock Eastern. So I'm normally live 5 o'clock Eastern. Oh, did I say teen? Tina. Excuse me. All right. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything. Fly Chomper Fly, $5. Did you hear how Biden will be handling debt? They aren't canceling it. Will continue, but the government will pay for it. So the system stay could be reinstated. I didn't hear that, but again, it's not really paying for it because the government owns the debt. So it's like the government's not like paying for the debt. The government's not paying itself. It's what Ben Bernanke and Alan Greenspan said. Government prints money. This is the government's money that it loaned out. It's as simple as that. They're just not going to be taking the money back. That's it. Same thing as they're not going to be taking the money back for the PPP loans that they loaned to people. Although some people didn't get the PPP loans forgiven, the majority did. They're not taking that money back. So this is just basically government loaned and then forgave the money, and they're not going to get the money back. And they're going to just print the money back into existence. So the government's coming out even. They're not losing money. Bahamut, $5. The same reporters that bitch and moan about some much needed relief for borrowers are the ones who never ask how we pay for all the offensive wars. I said this earlier. Absolutely. None of these fucks that are on CNN, MSNBC, and ranting on Twitter, none of them worry about the inflationary ramifications of bombing 9 countries at once, of being in a war for 20 years. Where, by the way, as the Washington Post broke a couple years ago, in Afghanistan, which was one of the biggest boondoggles in American history, the generals were mandated to spend $300 million per day. Let me repeat. In Afghanistan, the generals were mandated to spend $300 million a day. On what? Doesn't matter. Just figure out how to spend it. There was no questions how we were going to afford that because the government printed money to do it. It kept the military-industrial complex alive and well. Hey, new patron. Steven just signed up as a patron. Welcome, Steven. Now we're cooking. We got people signing up as members, patrons, loving it. And again, we'll do our members only call, which we do once a month when Colin's back next week because he knows how to set it up and I don't. All right, folks. Thank you very much for tuning in. We'll be back normal time tomorrow unless something breaks at 5 o'clock Eastern time. Remember, we cannot do this without you. So thank you for the super chats. Thank you so much to those who signed up as a member. You could sign up as a member at any time. That's statuscoup.com/join. I will see you back here tomorrow at 5 o'clock Eastern unless something else breaks before then. Have a good night.